Hey, good morning. It is me, Guido, and I've got my coffee. I'm ready for some coffee talk for the weekend. It's Sunday, not too early, 7 in the morning. Out watching the college football last night, so a little bit slower this morning. Got a couple things to talk about, though. We'll have some channel news. We'll start out with that. Been pretty busy this week, both with streaming and with the YouTube channel. Go over the missions and specials as we usually do. Right there, there's some doozies in there, some interesting things, and I had to dig a little bit to kind of figure out some of these missions that just popped up, and it's a little bit odd. Not as hard as it looks, but it's... Anyway, we'll get to that. Plus the sales. A couple of interesting things are on sale. Some strange things are afoot. And when we get to the subjects du jour, we'll talk about my recent grinding of the Polish line and a bit about onboarding and retention of low-tier players, because I learned a lot of very interesting things, and some of you probably watched my stream. We'll go over that when we get there. So let's get started, and whatever else I throw in there, of course, it's Coffee Talk. Here we go. All right, in channel news, we're cruising along. I'm doing a little bit of streaming. I've done quite a bit this week. I intend to try to keep up a bit of that. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it as much as I did this week. I had quite a bit of time off, grinding the polls for the most part, playing other things. I do have access, like I've said before, to a press account, so I can actually play all kinds of different tanks. If you have any requests on tanks that I may not have shown on the channel before because I don't own one or haven't seen a replay, go ahead and throw it down in the comments there, and I'll try to play it a couple times and see if I can get some information out for you. As far as the Twitch channel goes, which I haven't talked about too much, this is it right here, and you can see it's Guido 1212 Cartel, C-A-R-T-L, all in a row right there. Unfortunately, somebody already had Guido 1212, which really surprised me, but I was unable to get Guido 1212, so I've got the clan name on the end there, Cartel. So go ahead and check that out. It'll give you announcements when I'm online, when you set it up, if you're not a Twitch kind of person. Also, let me show you something else. The other thing about Twitch that it will do, if you look at this place that says videos here, why can't I see it on the thing? It's not really showing the whole picture. Anyway, there's videos right here, and these are the replays, recorded videos of all my sessions, so you can check that out. To some extent, it's like a tactics talk. I do talk tactics as I go. Sometimes I get quiet because I get very busy trying to make sure I don't die in there. Or in the case of the polls, I'm not too busy doing anything else but dying. So that is the news on the channel. Keep supporting them. I do appreciate that. Let's move on to the missions and specials. Also, I almost forgot, there are a bunch of reviews coming out for the polls. I have the first, I was going to say 5, first 4 are out right now. You can find those on the forum or posted to the YouTube channel. Let's move on with the rest of Coffee Talk. Hopefully you've got your coffee. Mine's a dark roast today. It's delicious on a Sunday morning. All right, let's get our shill on. Time to shill. What do we have for sale? Looking at the featured section, the Eagle 7 still around. We got the Snail Squad, which is apparently the slow tanks. Mega Polish War Chest. Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's click on that. What are you getting for $120? Well, interesting. You're getting 12,500 gold, 12,500,000 credits. Everyone knows my feelings on buying credits. 30 missions, and what is this? A Polish crew with 2 undistributed skills or perks trained for the HT-745 TP. Okay, interesting. You can now buy crew with 2 skills. You can actually get a crew with 1 skill. I'll talk about that in a minute. It's buried in there as well, under the Polish Triumvirate. Like I said, we'll get to that. But, okay, crew for money with two skills that you don't have to grind. Man, on the surface of it, I don't like that. But it really does smack of pay to win. On the other hand, I understand it is more of a time saver thing and not necessarily a pay to win thing, because you don't automatically get an advantage with 2 crews. Oh, I can hear everybody screaming. Of course you do. Okay, you still have to be a pretty good player to make use of them. Will they be better than a 0 crew or 80% crew? Of course. Are they that much better? I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's like buying an overpowered tank, which we've seen in the past. So I think that's probably a sign of things to come. It'll depend on how many they sell. That it's buried in a big package, I don't know how popular it's going to be. But the Tog Triumvirate thing was on sale as a big package, and I saw a bunch of them in the last couple days. So clearly somebody's buying these packages. They have a lot of them, which is surprising to me. But there you go. People buy them, so they put them up for sale. You know, there's not much else to say about that other than they sell. Leave your comments down there. I know that there's a lot of people fired up about this. I don't like it necessarily, but I don't think it's that big a deal. Considering everything else that's going on, I'm just going to leave it at that. I guess I'm just not that bothered by it, but they're available. Now, it's interesting for a couple reasons also, because number one, it's just the Polish crew, so you can't get any other crew for it. I assume that's going to come out as we go. You can't just pick a nation or a type of tank. Even within that Polish crew, you can't pick the tank. You have to use the 45 TP, which I think is the tier 7. I think that's what it said. Which means then you're going to use some of your gold you just bought to change them to something else, or downgrade them to an 80% crew on their major skill. The other option is to knock off some of their free skill and bring them to 100%, but I don't really recommend that because that second skill takes a lot of experience to get to. Anyway, that's an interesting development. What else is out there? We've got the Rev, which I believe is the tier 8 of the month. The Deadly Duo. I don't know why a T-34-3 and a FCM are a Deadly Duo, but there you go. That's the name of that package. VIC Viper. You can buy, I don't know why you would buy that, but it's got the 30 days on there. That's why, because it has 30 days and you get a little premium tank. That's why. Marbreaker. So you can see there's a lot of war chests. Here's the Tog. The Tog's out in force. 33 bucks for a loaded Tog. I don't know if you can get that separately. We'll find out as we go. As far as the gold goes, nothing really there. The Polish Mega War Chest is over here as well for some reason in the gold, I guess because it has a lot of gold. And there's nothing really special. There's quite a good discount, but all the big discounts include silver. I don't buy silver. Well, buy silver if you want. Why are you not going over there? There we go. Nothing on the premium days front. Remember, Christmas is coming. Christmas is coming. We'll see what they give us at Christmas. For the vehicles, a lot of the same stuff you've already seen. Nothing to add in here. The Even 90 is still nothing to add, and then you add something, right? Even 90 is there. The Ripper. All these things have been for a couple days. You can still get the Eagle 7 for a while. That's a good tank, actually. I would recommend the Eagle 7 if you're in the market for an American crew trainer. It's not a tier 8, but at tier 7 it makes pretty good credits. Check out my review on it. I'm not going to worry about the boosters. The boosters. We'll cruise over to the specials. And again, nothing else here. The Scorpion is out. I don't even know if we saw that in the other ones, but it might have been there. So you can get a Scorpion. That's a really good TD. Very good TD. I may have to play the Marbreaker on that press account to see what that thing's about. I heard it's not very good, but I haven't played it. Nothing else really to add in here with the specials. Now, I said we would talk about, you can get another kind of Polish crew, but it's sort of buried. So if we go over to this special Polish crews, but the way I found that was to go to this, which was the Labor Day events. So if I back up here and go to the main page, and I go, okay, so Labor Day events, I don't see anything about Polish crew here, do you? There it is. No, wait a minute. There it is, so we can get there or here, which is all the events, because I was trying to figure out what was going on with the missions. And I looked at the list and I went, all right, so what's going on with this? And there's nothing here for the missions. We'll dive into that in the UI. Unfortunately, I did not see here where it explained the missions. There's the Polish tank missions, but not this medium, heavy, light mission set that's up. We'll get that in a minute. But anyway, Polish Crews offer, which took me to that other one that we already looked at, the Got Polish Tanks. And from here you can get to the Triumvirate, which I did not see in the sales, featured or specials. What's the difference? Somebody told me the difference between that featured special is the featured is new, and the specials are just the specials that have been ongoing. Okay. Fellas, you don't need 2 tabs for that on your website. The more clicking people have to do, the more annoying your website is. I'm telling you, that's just how it works. And I love these guys. I love them. Polish Triumvirate. And that is where you get a 4-man Polish crew with only one skill and perk. So if you spend $33 for the triumvirate, which is less stuff, obviously, since it's less money, you only get one skill. But if you go for the gold at 119, you get 2 skills. And I mean, you add stuff like that in there, and that's where people are going to come at you with pay to win. That's just how it's going to go. I already discussed whether I thought it really was pay to win. I would say ish. And again, that's how the games get made. That's how the companies get paid. That's how they have employees. That's how they develop. I mean, you can rail against it all you want, but if there's not money going into the company, then you don't have the game. Now, we can discuss and argue about how they're using the money and how they're developing the game, but at the end of the day, somebody has to pay somebody in order to get those people to keep doing it. All right. And it's a mature game, so they're probably trying to figure out how they can continue to make it relevant and bring money in. And the people who've been here forever, I played when it was a free beta. Hey man, I get it, but it changes, so you got to roll with it. Okay, so that is the sales. Let's cruise over to the missions and try to unpack that. This is a good one. You're gonna like. Guido's gonna have a UI rant. All right, here we go. First things first, let's give a golf clap for switching or for changing missions and campaigns into 2 buttons. Well done, Wargaming. Thank you very much. I also like that the depot is split from the store. Okay, so we go to the missions. There are no events. Quick news right there. My understanding is that the EU is getting a T25 Marathon, which is a Tier 5 premium tank. We do not have an announcement other than I thought we were getting a British Tier 8 premium tank marathon of some kind, and I still can't find anything on that. So I'll keep you updated as I learn. Maybe I'll ping the NA folks and see if they have any essay on that. That will make some angst if the EU guys are getting a marathon for a Tier 5 and we get one for a Tier 8. Okay. 50-51 on track. That's in the missions tab. We knew that. That's been going on. The tank mastery, there's 2 of those going on at any one time. Why? Just put them all 8 and I don't know. Okay, good. It's whatever. It's extra stuff. Supply raid is pretty standard when they don't have a big weekend going on. You see a supply raid. And then this weekend started, and all of a sudden, I think on Saturday, they dumped all these other missions in. Instead of being an event, Labor Day, or saying Labor Day missions, it's other missions, which is where the Polish missions were already sitting. And now they've dumped all these heavy tank, light tank, medium tank, TD stuff in the same spot. And now we've got this massive wall of tiles to try to sort through. Oh, man. All right. First of all, kudos. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the Polish tanks. Except where's 6? Well, 6... and 7 are buried up here. There we go. There's 6 and 7. Why can't they be down here with the rest of the Polish guys? Might not want. Let's not go into that. But don't they want to hang out together? Okay. Now let's unpack this because this one drove me crazy. It took me 30 minutes to figure this out, and maybe I'm just dense. Well, I am dense, but maybe I'm denser than most. Okay. Heavy Tank 101, as an example. Let's do medium because I actually have tripped one because there's a reason why that's important. Medium Tank 101. First of all, heavy, lights, mediums, what's the order of this? And then they're all buried together and they go backwards. 101, 201, 301. Instead of going from top to bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's... All right, at least they're in an order of some kind. Medium Tank 101. So you do Medium Tank 101, which is destroy an enemy vehicle. You get a large kit, that's pretty obvious, and you get 2 tokens. This token system, I think it's got to go because it's driving me crazy. But anyway, you get a shell token and a medium token. But there's no real evidence of or explanation of what you do with these. I actually went to the forum. Somebody broke it down and explained it. I don't know where they found the info, to be quite honest, but it makes sense. What happens is you get a shell token and a medium token. So if you go up to the top, you've got the diploma. So you're going to go through 101, 201, 301, and 401. Get it? You're in school, you go to the classes, and then you get your diploma. To get the medium tank diploma, I need 10 shell tokens, okay, which I get through 101. Okay, I can get 1 shell token doing 101, which means I have to do 101 10 times. And this thing goes to, I don't know, you can't find out until you click on it. It goes to 1 October. You have a month. All right, bravo. Well done, Wargaming. People can do that. That's not a grind. It's not a stab myself in the eye with a dull stick kind of thing. It's an entire month, and I only need 10 of them. Booyah. Love it. All right. But it at least makes you play some, so that's a win-win. You got people playing your game, and they're not completely irritated, except for trying to figure out how your system works. Well, 1 out of 2 ain't bad, I guess. So we got medium tank token. What's that do? Well, I don't know. Let's see. We'll click on this. It is a token is a reward item used for completion of a certain mission. Well, that's useful. It's a reward item. Nowhere in here. Only vehicles. Mission reset at 6. Okay, that's good info. Goes to 1 October. Okay. I have to actually click this to get a lot of good information. What do I have to do? These things. Well, I don't know. I have no idea. What's that for? What is that for? Well, here's the deal. What it's for what it's for is you need 1 of these to get to 201. You need 1 of these to get to 201. Which means if you finish 101, you can go to 201. But it takes a token. You need, this is where it gets even better. You need 2 of these to get to 301. Which means you have to do 101 and 201, and then you can get to 301. Which means if you do them in order, you can go up the line, basically. The tokens don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. You just do them in order. And obviously, if you do 101 and 201, you have 2 tokens, then you can do 301. And when you do 3 of them, you have 3 tokens, then you can do 401. The only thing I can think of here, and I am getting on their case, is that that's the way they mech'd it to make sure people can't just click on 401 and do it. But they've done it before where you have to trip one to get to the next one, so I don't know what the purpose of the token is. Now, here's the cool thing about this. Look at this. 401 is 10,000 combat experience, man. So if you're grinding, say, the poles, or any other line for that matter, because it has lights, mediums, heavies, and TDs, no arty. Sorry, arty guys, just kidding. 10,000 combat experience is awesome. That is a good deal. And you can do that multiple times. Once every day, right? It resets every day. This is, if I click on this, it says every 24 hours. So if I do these 3 missions, these 3, and get to this and do this mission once a day for almost 30 days, we're already past one of the days. What does it go to? The 1st or the 2nd of October? 1st October. Let's just say 30 days if I did it all 30 or give or take a day. 300,000 experience? Unless I'm missing something here, you are eligible for grinding, not even really grinding, for adding 300,000 experience to your grind as you go. That's amazing. Now, we get down to the Polish missions. These only go to the 17th of September, which is only 15 more days. And you need to get to tier 8 to get the top prize. So, that extra 10,000 on those tanks is really going to help out if you're grinding those things. Now, the last thing I will say that's interesting about the Polish ones here is you get a rental when you get there. At tier 6, you can get the Pudel. At the tier 7 or the 60 TP. And I believe this is, that's the tier 10. You get the 50 TP, sorry. When you get to the tier 10, you get the 50 TP rental, the prototype, which is pretty cool. Although it's for 24 hours, and I mentioned last time that's not cool. Who cares? I'll let you play it a couple times at least, I guess. Somebody said in here that there is a crew that you get, a female crew. I can find no one commander. I can find no evidence of where you get that, although there is this Poland token, which is sort of undocumented, I guess, if you will, because I don't see anywhere in here where there's get a crew member. So someone on the forum said that's what it is. I have not found no evidence of it. I can't find it on the website. So if anyone knows, please put it down in the comments so we can verify that you're going to get one commander with 6 cents. Kind of like Buffon and some of these other award commanders that we've got along the way. And my understanding is if you get to the top Polish mission, which is back up here, buried in between everything else for some bizarre reason, then you will trip. You will trip the mission and you will get the commander. Don't know. All right, well that's it for missions. It's that was a lot to try to unpack, and it's sometimes hard to understand what they're doing. I mean, the heart's in the right place. There's been a bunch of improvements. It's getting better, but this is way too confusing, and it's going to speak to my onboarding and new player retention discussion that we're going to have here in just a moment. Let's move on. Let's talk about new player retention and onboarding in World of Tanks. The polls just came out. You can see that I'm up to tier 6 and I've got the Christmas camo on it. Man, Christmas is coming. That's cool. I was pretty surprised that when I saw this that the polls actually got to use some of that. I guess why not? They're added into it there somewhere. Was the Pudel out last Christmas? I don't think it was out that long ago. In any event, traditional Christmas, if you remember that whole event from last year, if you have camo from traditional equipment, traditional Christmas, it can go on your Polish tanks, which I did because this is a silly, silly tank. I'll get a review out on it in a while. You can see I've got the other polls down here. I've got the tier 1, which I played through. Took me 1 game. I got the tier 2. Took me 3 or 4 games. I got the tier 3. That's the prize tank. Tier 3, there it is. Or the premium TKS that you got for free. I got the tier 3 tank. That took me about 9 battles, I think, or so. And then I got to the tier 4 tank, which took me 41 battles. Let's take a look at the stats on this thing. Barely at 49%. Didn't quite get to 50% on the win rate. So I did this Iron Man style. I started from a stock tank and I ground through all the modules. Some of them I skipped a couple modules because I was interested in speed, but I also kind of wanted to get the idea of coming up through a stock tank. And boy, how did I get an idea of what coming through a stock tank is. In addition to that, coming through stock tanks that were abysmal, and I mean extremely bad, especially at the tier 4. The tier 1 and 2 are tier 1 and 2 tanks. They're all more or less the same. There's not a whole lot of difference in some of those. There's a couple of them that are quite good out there, but they all basically fight more or less exactly the same. So the tier 1, like I said, was easy. You can see I got that done in 1 battle. The 7 TP I did in 3 battles, whole 33%. I mean, I won 1 and lost 2. And that's from winning 1 and losing 2, right? I won the 4 TP battle, so with a ×2, I got everything unlocked easily. There's just not a lot of experience required. So tier 1s are easy to get through. Everyone knows that. Tier 2, pretty easily. I won 1, lost 2. I was still able to get through it. That ×2 kind of tripped through most of the equipment that I needed, or not the equipment, but modules. The 10 TP was 4 and 5, so that one took a little bit more because the experience requirements go up. The ×2 went a long way, but I still then at that point had to grind through, and only going 4 and 5 obviously didn't help me too much. But you see that the damage causes 218 on this thing. You come over here, and I did less damage in the 14 TP in 41 battles. And the primary reason for this, and why I'm talking about onboarding here, is these tanks, all of their stock guns are, let's go to it, all of their stock guns are a 37mm, all the way up to this tank, starting with a 37mm with 34 pen, and I can barely read it, 40 average damage. I mean, that is just bad for the game. When you go back to here to the 10 TP, you've unlocked a 47mm at the end of it. That's well better than the 37mm, oh, by the way, which you start with there. In fact, you start with that same 37mm at tier 2. So you force a player for the next 2 tier stock tanks to play with a tier 2 gun that you've unlocked already back at Tier 1. Actually, that's not true. Even the Tier 1 has a 47 millimeter with 45 and 55 average damage. Even that 47 millimeter, a less capable one, would have been 10 times better than this 37. I can sort of see it at Tier 2, but when you get to Tier 3 and force them to do that, and they've unlocked another 47 millimeter, multiple kinds of them, and then you get to the Tier 4, which is a difficult tier anyway. Why? Because it starts to see Tier 6. You're pretty sheltered in 1 through 3. But when you get to 4, you're in the full gamut of +2, -2 matchmaker, except that you never get to be +2 on top, beating up on Tier 2s. You do get to get beat up by Tier 6s. What's at Tier 6? KV2s, O1s, Su 100Ys. At Tier 5 and Tier 6, for that matter, you've got derping M4s. You've got the Panzer IV-H with the derp. You get the drift. All kinds of big guns that can actually erase your 400-something hit points in one shot at Tier 4. And then you give them a 37 millimeter. All right, break. Not a lot of people grind everything with the free experience system that they've got. But when you talk about that, you're talking about experienced and knowledgeable players. The newest player, if he was to start on this Polish line, if you had a Polish player and he went, man, I've never played World Tanks, but they got Polish tanks out, let's do it, they probably would quit and not make it past the Polish tanks. This, for me, a good player, was such a miserable experience, gaming experience, that it's hard to explain. Now, let's not get crazy. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it's a game. I chose to do it Iron Man style, to go from a stock tank up to the fully upgraded tank. So a lot of that is on me, which I talk about a lot in my review. I get that. What I'm talking about, though, is from a new player onboarding experience and retention of new players, and even to some extent, experienced players who may not, have been around a whole lot of times or for a long time. That just seems like a really bad idea to me from a development standpoint, marketing standpoint. And I'm really kind of concentrating on the gun, but the whole tank overall is bad. Look at my review. It does nothing well. In fact, it does everything poorly. So usually you can kind of hang your hat on a tank's capability. It does this well, or it does this well. This one in particular, and to some extent the Tier 3, is just completely awful all the way around. And I recommend skipping it to players, but that's not the point of this discussion, because we're talking about onboarding and retention. So it just doesn't have to be that bad. This 37 millimeter did not need to be at Tier 3 on the Tier 3 tank, for one thing. Never mind the Tier 4 tank. It being on the Tier 4 tank as the stock gun, it's hard to describe how dumb that is. It really is. That is one of the worst ideas I think I've seen. It's hard to explain. It is. Obviously, since I can't explain it. I want to use expletives and go a little over the top. I'm not going to do that. My point is that you don't have to do it. You could have one of these other less capable 47 millimeters, and it wouldn't have changed a thing. It wouldn't have made the tank overpowered at all. It would have at least made it able to do something. I have some very funny, in my review, there's one game in particular where I show where I'm just running around shooting things, and I am bouncing everything, and eventually all I'm doing is spotting for artillery and running away. It's like a Keystone Cops episode. There were times in that tank where I just drove out and tried to ram someone. It was so frustrating that, and I'm streaming this, I'm like, you know what, guys, in order to move on from here, I'm just going to drive out and see if I can ram that guy. A couple times I'd do it, and I'd get 37, points of damage. That was the entirety of my damage for the game, because I could not do one single thing simply because I was given a gun that was ridiculous. All of that being said, at the end of it, I upgraded it. It didn't make it good, but it made it grindable, playable. It was not going to be a tank I was going to necessarily love or try to play a lot, but at least with the 47 millimeter, I was finally kind of there. The other part of it is, in order to get to that 47 millimeter, you had to go through the tracks, a turret, another mediocre gun, and then finally to the last gun. This grind was set up poorly. It was very rough. It's not unusual for them to need tracks. That's kind of a standard thing. The ones before didn't, so I'm not really that irritated by that. But then have to go through the turret just to get to a decent gun. So it's not like I could put this 40 millimeter up here and say, all right, let me just grind out that 40 millimeter, throw it on there, and at least I'll be able to do something while I do the rest of this grind. No, you have to do tracks, turret, crummy gun, less crummy gun, crummy gun. Going from, you might as well not even have a gun. Anyway, that has been a long, slightly ranty discussion about this. And I would say that I am certainly not out in left field on this. I am not the only one. If you read the forums anywhere, everyone's talking about it, how bad this, in particular, this tank is. There are a lot of people with the hyperbole about how the whole line is bad. I don't see that. I've played on the press account some of the upper tanks. I kind of like them. I actually liked the Tier 5 okay. It wasn't like, hey, I'm in the best Tier 5 tank I've ever played, but it was capable and I had no problem playing it. Now, I did upgrade it fully, but even upgraded fully, this one was a nightmare. The Tier 5 was mediocre, and I enjoyed playing it because it's tanks and it's a new tank, and I was checking it out and I was streaming, and that was cool. The Tier 6 is interesting. It's kind of schizophrenic a little bit. It sort of acts like a heavy, but it says it's a medium, and it can't really do either one. But whatever. It's got a 240 alpha gun, which is a lot at Tier 6. So it's kind of an interesting, fun tank. And we'll move on from there. The ones below I didn't hate. They were kind of okay. But the onboarding and retention, when that Tier 4 is kind of that critical point. Now, I understand building paywalls and things like that and why you might do that. But it needs to be less obvious, I guess. This one, wow. Anyway, that is enough of that. My thoughts on onboarding and retention in regards to grinding out new tanks, and in particular this Polish line. I suppose it's probably true on other lines. I haven't done it in a long time, which is one reason I wanted to do it with the Poles. I don't know if any other lines have a similar situation. Tier 4 does seem to be one of those strange tiers. It is kind of a wall to get through. I mentioned paywall earlier, whatever. But Tier 4 is a wall as far as capability of the tanks and moving on to the next level. Because somewhere around Tier 4, tanks start to move out into their actual roles. Even though they're, before, at Tier 4 and below, if it says light, medium, heavy, it doesn't really matter very much. They're kind of the same tank. But at Tier 4 to 5, they start to split out, and now you're talking about the no kidding different roles of the tanks, and they start to fulfill those roles. So that is a wall, plus the whole matchmaker thing changes at Tier 4. You start seeing the painful effects of 357. I didn't even touch on that, so everyone knows what's going on with that. Hopefully they can work that out. That's it, man. It was bad. My advice on this tank is to avoid it. Avoid it like the plague. And if you're going to play it, make sure you upgrade it with free experience. It doesn't really take that much. You can see the numbers are very small. And to some extent, that may be what the company's relying on. Hey, dudes, it's not that much to free experience. If you don't want to Iron Man through it, then don't do it. I'm like, oh, okay. That kind of defeats the purpose of the grind part of the game, which I actually kind of like. I enjoy that. I do. I like taking a stock tank and upgrading it. Right? That's part of the appeal of the game. But I want the tank to be able to do something. It doesn't have to dominate, but it needs to be able to do something. This one, man. See, I got sucked back into talking about it. All right, let's move on. All right, well, that's it. Just about done with my coffee. We are finished up. I'm going to add one little thing, though, to that T25 marathon that's going on. Just was reading another blog here. Apparently, from what I understand, that's from 1 September to 14 September on EU for that T25, and it is a group kind of marathon where if you receive X number of, or if they all earn X number of tokens, they all get the tank, and you have to activate a code to do it. That's kind of interesting. And he says there'll be two premium tank marathons, so that must be talking about the British one that's coming as well later on. So I'll keep you updated on that. I haven't heard anything about it. We apparently are not getting the T25 thing as far as I know, or at least it's not advertised. That doesn't mean we're not getting it. If I get any inside information on that and it's releasable, I will let you know. Otherwise, that is it for Coffee Talk for this week. If you are new to this game and struggling with the onboarding and retention, stick around. The game is still a good game, obviously. It gets a lot better when you get to Tier 5 with a lot of tanks. If you're struggling with that Tier 4, go to another line, get some more free experience on tanks you like, and just go through especially at low tiers where it doesn't take a lot of free experience. Either upgrade that tank completely or ignore it. That's all I got, guys. See you later.